So first of all, before I start, I just want to thank Yahoo for having me here and also for bringing Yahoo Hack back to London. I think that a lot of us who have been here in London for a while remember some of the early Yahoo and Hack days quite fondly. I think it was probably, in my mind, it's the mother of all hack days. So it's great to have you guys back here. Some positive reinforcement from me about doing that kind of stuff. That's great. I'm here to talk to you about FirefoxOS today. I have this is a slightly higher level presentation than the last two guys, and it's the first of a set that we're going to have another more technical workshop that is going to happen this afternoon that my colleague Francisco Giordano is going to present. Maybe Francisco can raise his hand there. Okay, so therefore, any hard questions that you have, you can save for Francisco. Okay, basically, right? But I'm going to tell you a little bit about the project and about FirefoxOS. How many people have heard of FirefoxOS? Okay, how many people have played around with FirefoxOS devices? That's great. Okay, so some of this won't be too new to you. All right, this isn't working. So I wanted to start with a little just interesting footnote. 5 years ago at a talk at Web2 Expo, I said within 5 years the majority of web usage worldwide will be mobile, and it's clear to me that this has happened. It was already, actually, in 2008, 2009, it was already happening in the developing world. I think it's happened in the developed world now. I think the anecdotal evidence is mounting that the majority of web usage is actually from devices that we consider mobile devices. And this is things like phones, but also tablets, et cetera, that kind of thing. So the web is mobile now, and apologies to Brad for stealing his image here, but I love this image of different devices, different form factors, and the web is all over it. We don't have to talk about, and we don't have to worry about the mobile web anymore. I co-chaired a W3C interest or working group which had a couple of people I see were on that group, which was called the Mobile Web Best Practices, and I'm glad to be done with the era of the mobile web. We don't have to think about the mobile web. The web has become a mobile thing now, and so we don't have to think about that anymore, right? But we still have a situation in mobile technology and in the way people use the web and develop for the web on mobile, that web on mobile is a second-class citizen. So web apps are second-class citizens on phones like the iPhone, like Android phones. There's a lot of confusion, I would think, in the general populace around the difference between the web and apps and how people. And this is fed by kind of the mainstream marketing, mainstream media. If you see a advertisement for a movie in the tube, for instance, you're just as likely to see a URL now as you are to see search for this keyword as you are to see download our app. I think the Star Trek one was download our app, right? Which I think is a little bit regressive in terms of the way in terms of the advantages of the web. So consumers are being driven towards apps. I think that's interesting. But in the process, we're losing something that the web, I think, has given us, and that those of us who kind of grew up with the web or helped to develop the web have seen it as one of its advantages, and that is interoperability, freedom, openness, and choice. Consumer choice, user choice, developer choice. All of those are elements of the web. And I'm not going to get into defining the web here because that's a whole other religious discussion, but I can certainly tell you what some of the elements are, and those are them. So I'm also, this native apps versus web apps discussion has been something that has been really irking me for the past few years, right? Everybody, I can't tell you how many panels I've been on or people have been invited me to come talk. Oh, can you talk about apps versus web? We really want to hear about apps versus web. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to talk about apps versus web. This is a dumb debate, right? And it's also a false dichotomy, or it has been, because of course you can use HTML technologies to build apps. You can build web apps. So it has been really a matter of using the right tool for the job. And to a certain extent, the web has had limitations, right? When you think about smartphone platforms, the web, as the experience has been within the browser. The web has not had access generally to device APIs, to privileged information within the device. The web has not been very good with touch, so it hasn't been a great place to build touch-based applications. The techniques around responsive user experience haven't really been too great, and JavaScript frameworks have been oriented towards it. These are just some of the challenges that the web has had on mobile from a developer perspective. When you look at all the environments that you have available to you as a developer, how am I going to bring my application to mobile? These are things that weigh in the direction of native application development. But now the web is catching up, right? So, and it's catching up because a lot of these things are being addressed, right? So now I can have a web application that sits outside of the browser, right? And that's true not only on web-based devices like FirefoxOS, but also on iOS, where there's a great application from the Financial Times, which a lot of us look to. But there are other great experiences that use the save to home screen approach to create a Chromeless web view, where you can actually be using a web application on your phone. And from a user perspective, it's an application in the same way that other applications are. You can get access to device APIs. So geolocation was probably the first one, and I was lucky enough to be involved with that effort to bring geolocation to W3C. But now we're seeing other APIs, even the battery status, all the APIs around getting the access to the device status. Things like the accelerometer, the orientation sensor, all that kind of stuff. Having access to all that allows you to have a richer user experience. Touch events as well have come to the web and have come to the web platform. So now we have W3C touch events, and those enable you to take advantage of those when they're available to you. And we have a great community developing around responsive UI and responsive UI practices, and we have JavaScript frameworks that are either developing, that are being developed from a mobile-first perspective. And you know what? Apps remind me of something, suddenly. They remind me a little bit of cartridges. Are they starting to? And so, I don't know, because when I think about the web and the power of the web actually has staying power. If you take a look at one of those cartridges, if you find it today, I think you would find it very difficult to use it on any equipment, although you can still use it on those games on emulators and stuff like that. But the web, I can go back and look at websites that I wrote in that I developed in whatever, 94, 95. I don't like to look at them, but you can look at them. And the web has that kind of ability to live through history somehow. So it's and some of the factors that make that possible are that it's built on open royalty-free standards. There's an international community of implementers around it. It's open to all content providers, open to all developers. If you don't like it, you can fork it. So lots of open source implementations, although there is a difference between open source and open standards, of course. And people choose the web because the web gives people a choice, right? And I strongly believe that we're going to see that we have seen it happen on mobile, that we're going to continue to see it happen more on mobile, where more app developers choose the web because more users are choosing the web and are able to choose the web. So, given all that, I want to talk a little bit about FirefoxOS. Sorry for if that was a little bit like giving you the religion or something like that. But I want to talk a little bit about FirefoxOS. So it's a phone built by the people who brought you the web, right? And that's not hyperbole. I mean, Brendan Eich, who's the inventor of JavaScript, is one of the people at Mozilla who's very a big proponent of this work. You know, all apps on the phone are web apps, right? So this means that web apps become a first-class citizen of the phone. Not only are all the apps on the phone that you might use, like games, web apps, but also the dialer and everything else, the messaging, contact book, all that kind of stuff are built as web apps. So they have to be built on top of APIs which support them. All the applications are built on top of Firefox Engine. Everything is open source. And it's optimized. This is important for low-end smartphones, right? So the idea is that we have a whole bunch of people in the world that actually don't have smartphones yet, that don't have iPhones, that don't have Android phones. And the idea, the ethos behind this initially was to build an OS that could work on a low-end device that could be brought to countries like Brazil, like Venezuela, that kind of thing. So we're working very much along those lines, and it's an open operating system. So why is Telefonica Digital involved in this? We're one of those monopolistic, telcos. Why should we care about open source stuff? We're pretty evil, actually. So I don't know, well, actually, I think the key word on this slide is digital, because Francisco and myself work for a part of Telefonica that's called Telefonica Digital. And part of the idea is to kind of push the envelope and do stuff that telcos wouldn't normally do. And that's something that comes very much from the top of the organization. So we think there's an advantage to pushing the web platform. We think easier app development across platforms will lead to better apps and more choice. We think that lower cost handsets is going to mean more people using them, bringing more people onto smartphone platforms. We think that the duopoly out there that exists around not necessarily app development, but more the app store side of things is bad for developers in the end, and is bad in the long run for innovation. So even though we've seen a lot of innovation on these platforms, and I love the iPhone, I think that some of the choices around the closedness of the market and the terms and conditions that you have to sign up to as a developer in order to get onto that market are antithetical to innovation, right? And we think that bringing a fresh approach and being disruptive in this market is actually going to be a good thing right now. It's not only going to be a good thing for app developers and for users, but it's going to be a good thing for Telefonica. It's going to be a good thing for mobile operators and for the mobile industry in general, and for the whole ecosystem. We're really discovering what open innovation means right now. I mean, 2 weeks ago I was in Madrid, and I was there for what we call the Working Week, where we had about 100 developers from Mozilla and developers from other partner companies like KDDI and Deutsche Telekom and some of the manufacturers that we're working with, and all working together in a very open way, contributing code to GitHub, triaging bugs, finding, prioritizing bugs, fixing them, that kind of stuff. And it's an amazing ethos around this work, and a lot of effort being put in by a lot of people and a lot of companies in the industry in order to make this happen. So I feel very privileged actually to be involved in it. So what are we doing with FirefoxOS? I think one of the things that we're trying to do is trying to bridge the gaps. So new APIs that allow access to things like the accelerometer, camera, address book, calendar, et cetera, all that kind of stuff. There's a new security model for privileged apps. Francisco is going to go into some of the detail on this, but there are two types of apps that we are talking about when we talk about apps on the phone. One of them is a hosted app, where the app is traditionally hosted on a web server and you're just visiting it via a URL. And then you can use app cache and offline storage in order to create an offline experience. Or you can create a fully packaged app, which is actually zipped up and has an app manifest, and is downloaded onto the app, onto the phone. Either one of them can support an offline experience. It is a little bit difficult to get the kinks out of app cache sometimes, but the idea is that you as a developer can choose what you want to do. Depends on how you want to build your application and what kind of application it is, right? So from the user perspective, icons represent the apps. There's a curated app store that we're going to launch with from Mozilla, but the architecture is very much such that you can build your own app store. You can have, anybody can build an app store, and we want to see a lot of app stores flourish. So we're also kind of blurring the lines, and this is the kind of interesting bit from my perspective, because I also work within W3C web standards trying to push the standards forward. It's kind of redefining what the web is from a user perspective. So a user might be used to using the web as a, how much time do I have left? Am I good? 2 minutes? Okay, all right. So a user might be used to using the web by going to a URL bar, typing a URL, that kind of thing. But we're changing that user expectation. So in the process, I think we have to ask some questions, and these questions don't have clear answers. So this is an interesting time, I think, for the web and for the web on mobile. You know, for instance, is a Chromeless web app still the web? Is a packaged web app still the web? I think some people say yes, some people say no. Personally, I say yes, but I think that this gets into the question of what is the web, which is a pretty thorny one actually. And how can I, as a user, tell when I can expect to use an app offline? That's something that Francisco's been working on quite a bit. I'll just briefly touch on this. Everything.me integration. This is also something new that we're bringing to the phone. Everything.me is a separate company that's integrated. The search experience is integrated into the phone, but the idea here is that you start to search for something and you can start using apps immediately, even if they're not on your phone, and then you can decide whether or not you want to bring the app onto your phone or not. And that's a new kind of user experience. It's a new way of thinking about using the web on your phone. Okay, we're working on standards. I already mentioned W3C, so all of this stuff is either based on existing standards or is stuff that we're pushing into the standards process. So again, there's a SysApps working group that we're involved in very closely, as well as things like improving app cache and push for push messaging. I'm not going to talk about that. I want to just briefly, if I can show the phone for 1 second, can I have the... Okay, great. So this is the Geeks Phone Keyon, which is sort of out of focus right now. How can I do this? Autofocus. Come on. Autofocus off. No, autofocus on. Is that working? All right, that's a bit better. All right, so I have 2 of these to give away tomorrow. This is Qualcomm 1 gigahertz. It's pretty simple, or sub 100 euro smartphone that has everything you need in order to do FirefoxOS. I can show you, the basic UI here. But one thing that I really wanted to show, which I was very happy that I could get working for you here, is, and my daughter was very happy about as well, is cut the rope. So you can see that not only is this a phone where you can use the web, this is a web app, right? But you can build, using web technologies, very interactive games, interactive applications in the same way that you would expect to be able to build on other smartphone platforms. And that's really one thing that I wanted to emphasize here. This is not about a dumbed-down developer experience, but this is very much something that we think you can build rich experiences on. So anyway, that's it from me. I'm going to be around tomorrow doing judging, and I will be giving away 2 Keyons like this to 2 of the best apps that we think you guys have built for FirefoxOS So thank you very much. Oh.
Maybe get one, but there's not that much time.
Any question? And I should mention again that in the workshop track, Francisco is going to be doing a deeper dive into building apps with FirefoxOS, and you'll be able to ask technical questions there. But are there any questions that I can field right away? Yeah? Sorry? That was running on the device, and that was a packaged app, actually, that was zipped up. So that's a good example. Cut the Rope and other types of commercial apps are a good example of where an app developer might really want to zip the application up and send it down to the device, you know, to deter people maybe from copying it around and stuff like that. But yeah, no, that's definitely an offline zipped up app. But again, it's just running inside of the Firefox environment.
If you're developing the app do you need the phone to test it?
Sorry?
Would you need the phone to test it, the mobile phone?
You could. Francisco's going to get into some of that. There's a full emulator environment that you can download and install into Firefox on the desktop. So you can start building applications without having access to phones. Obviously, when you want to get into the testing phase, you really need to have a phone in front of you, I think. And you can also flash Galaxy S2s and some other types of devices with builds of FirefoxOS, so you can actually test on phones even if you can't get access to the FirefoxOS phones.
Is available an active toolkit to extend the existing API? For example, suppose the accelerometer API is not available. Is it possible to write it in C, C++, and expose it to web app?
Oh, you mean to write your own APIs into the platform and expose them to the?
A missing API, basically. Yeah, in native language.
That's kind of advanced topics. I'm gonna punt that to Francisco, and you can ask him later. But I mean, that's kind of out of scope for how we imagine the developer story will go for now. We imagine you getting access to the system APIs that we're exposing from the platform. We're trying to make all the application development happen at that layer, partially from a security and malware perspective as well. Yeah, one more?
What's the device called?
Well, that particular device is called the Geeks Phone Keyon. It's really a developer preview device. It's not intended for mass market. There will be other devices coming out from manufacturers like LG, ZTE, and Huawei, I believe, that are going to have their own names, and I don't know what the names of those devices are. But I mean, FirefoxOS is the name of the OS, and the same, and you know, that kind of thing. Okay, so thanks, and if you want to learn more,
Sorry, just one quick question. See me? Hi.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Is the way that it's developed, are we likely to see offshoots? I mean, particularly like the Tor Onion browser is built on Firefox. Are we likely to see the Tor Onion OS? Is that kind of how it's been developed? Are we likely to see offshoots of Firefox OS?
I definitely, you know, because this is an open source project, right? So I think that we hope that there are. I mean, I don't know specifically what the browser you mentioned, but.
The Tor Onion browser?
The Tor browser. Yeah, that would be. Yeah, I've had the same thought actually, and it would be difficult with the architecture we have right now because you need to get in the middle of the TCP traffic. But I wonder if it could be done. I mean, that would be a good hack for this weekend.
Maybe not in 24 hours.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Wait. One more. Yes.
Hi there. I'm doing an app for a nonprofit for a charity, and the appeal of a low-cost phone is great. What type of user adoption penetration are you expecting in 2013 and 2014?
Huge.
Yeah, good.
I can't predict. No. And I'm not the commercial guy anyway, so yeah, punt. Sorry. Okay. Thanks everybody, and happy hacking.
All right. Let's hear it for Daniel. Thank you, Daniel.